In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to replace the belt in a Citizen W1D 3.5-inch floppy drive. These drives are 20 plus years old, and it's pretty much guaranteed that the belts have stretched or broken or turned to goo at this point. This is a slim-sized floppy drive with a 26-pin flat flex ribbon cable that was used in many laptops in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's also commonly used in things like music synthesizers and sewing machines. I have a number of these drives. In this case, you're seeing an external floppy drive for a Toshiba Protege 3000 series laptop. As you can see, I've just popped the clips on this Toshiba case to get to the drive inside. Now, since this is an external drive, it has a connector on the ribbon cable. I'm removing it here, but it really isn't necessary, and probably recommend not removing it because it's not super easy to plug it back in. Of course, if this is an internal drive, there's no way around this. So we have 4 screws to remove. There's 2 smaller screws along the front sides, and then 2 slightly larger screws in the rear on the top. So now the top is just being held on by some tabs. We just need to gently lift them so we can pull the top off. Next, we need to remove the main mechanism. We do this by getting a hold of it, slightly lifting it up, angling it, and sliding it out. We need to pay special attention to the drive heads here. You need to gently lift them up so they clear the back of the mechanism as you slide it out, but not so far that you risk damaging or bending them. You also don't want to scrape the heads with the back of the mechanism. So my belt's fairly intact here. It is stretched so the little motor just spins. It doesn't actually turn the drive. Some of the other drives are repaired. The belts were in pieces or would break when you're taking it apart and they'd be all sticky. In that case, you might want to clean up the pulleys with some isopropyl alcohol. So to fully remove the belt and install the new one, we'll need to access the motor, which is held on by 2 little screws. Now regarding finding replacement belts, I've seen 3D models you can download and print in TPU. I've seen people buy generic belts. They normally recommend 1mm by 69 or 71mm. The only place I've seen online to order them, specifically marketed as Citizen W1D drive belts, was a long-running German eBay auction where he seems to slowly add a couple each week. Here you can see the ones that I got from him. No issue shipping to the US. They're about $10 a piece. I'll put a link in the description. So to reinstall our new belt, we hook it around the pulley and screw the motor back in place. So it's a little fiddly, but now we just route the belt around the big pulley, noting the little gold pulley, following the same path that you see here. giving the pulley a few turns to make sure it's smooth, make sure there's no twists in the belt. Since I have easy access, I'm going to give the drive heads a quick clean with a foam swab and some isopropyl alcohol, being careful again not to lift it too high. Now for the reassembly, we're going to tilt in the mechanism. We have to carefully lift the drive heads again to pass over the bar on the back of the assembly. One critical note is the little silver tab on the clip needs to fit underneath the little tab on the motor mount. If you don't do this, it's not going to slide in properly. You don't want to force this. It should pretty much just drop in if everything's lined up correctly. Now there's a little spring that holds the drive door closed. It's held captive underneath the mechanism, so it'll be loose when you took it off. We just need to carefully bend it back underneath the mechanism. You can see our door is working again. Going to give it a quick test with a disc just to make sure everything's working properly before I finish the assembly. Kind of interesting to see the inner workings here. So now we install the top cover back on, sliding the tabs over the notches, and then reinstalling the 4 screws, the smaller ones on the front sides and the larger ones on the top rear. I'm going to use a little contact cleaner into this connector to act as a little bit of a lubricant as well. Even though there's a stiffener on the ribbon cable, it's a little difficult to plug back in. I want to be gentle to avoid tearing it. When I finished, you can still see a little bit of the copper from the pins on the ribbon cable. Though it worked, I went back in later and pushed it in further because I noticed when I was checking another identical model, it was fully seated so you couldn't even see any of the pins. So since this was an external drive, all that's left here for me is just to put it back into its case. So far I've taken apart about 6 of these Citizen drives. Half of them were fixed just by changing the belt. 2 of them, the motor would just keep clicking. 1 of them had read issues. I'll maybe revisit those in the future, but I have enough that I have multiples, so I have a good working copy of each example that I need. But that's it. Thanks for watching.